fumble. Alright, so you want it to kind of like move the entire time it's moving. You don't want it to just be like moving, up and down like just one basic envelope. You want to have your overall sweep motion kind of like laid out for you, but then along that way, you want something to happen. So in Absinthe, you have the ability to modulate this line and to assign as many different envelopes to as many different points as you want. So it becomes super duper crazy for that reason. So I think that is probably one of the biggest strengths of Absinthe in general. So if anybody's trying to get into Absinthe or is using Absinthe, I recommend trying to get like full control over the envelope section, because that's probably my favorite thing about it. And my favorite thing about Native Instruments design in general is they kind of like really focused on the multi breakpoint envelope, which I like. And then Serum kind of like had LFO tool, at its disposal from Xfer, which LFO tool has always been like pretty amazing. Always loved it. I'm just gonna keep this at an octave. So when I'm like producing or whatever, I can like give it like a harmony or whatever. I'm just gonna keep it at an octave for now. So an octave up will just kind of give me like a brighter set of harmonics to work with. I'm gonna do it post the bandpass too, so it kind of bandpasses all the harmonics out. That will kind of make it really, really kind of grainy sounding. We can also change the size of grains too. Changing it to like a small grain size and pitching it up can result in some weird sounds as well. But yeah, here's another thing that I like to do a lot as well. And like when you start to check out, I guess, more patches that are, ambient patches and whatever, they're going to have a lot of weird shit happening that doesn't really make that much sense. So here's something that I kind of want to hear, but, I don't want to hear it all the time. So I want it to come in and out, but then I do want it to modulate on coming in and out. Keep on getting these Discord notifications. Turn my phone off silent for a second. Okay, so I'm gonna go back into the weird ones. I can go and draw something weird too, but the wubs are particularly weird. So this one I actually want because it increases in amplitude over time. So I'm gonna have that. Gonna have it modulate the sustain here. Then we're gonna pull back the attack here. I do want it to kind of like have a concave shape to it. And then we're gonna send this value here. Okay, so this is actually going to feed back on itself though. So I'm actually pulling the delay here so it happens a little bit after the onset of the envelope. It's going to be like a secondary part of the sound. So I'm going to send this value from the envelope to the speed here. So it kind of like speaks to this thing. it's creating this really weird feedback loop when I start to change these values. They're moving like really, really fast. So this pitch shifter really, and I do this a ton with Absent too, where it's like creating this extra layer on top. And this is definitely something you want from it. You want it to sound like there's a couple different synths playing at the same time. So if I was going to be doing like single notes, then doing something that harmonizes is a lot better of an idea. And I can even double these pitch shifters up, right? And then go and pitch one up an octave and then have it go up another octave and a fifth from there. So if we're thinking orchestrally about it, that would be like a flute layer on top of the brass section, which is brass always equals sawtooth. So if we're thinking kind of like sawtoothy like sounds, which is this filter FM sound here, we got some more modulation like that, which is kind of like a 1-to-1 modulation here. And then, yeah, so it's all kind of focused around that. We got some texture right there. So next piece that I would put in, which is kind of like the final piece for like the engine, I guess, for where the sound is coming from, would be a little bit of some type of Foley sound, some type of Foley sample. So we have this sound here. We can make another group for this, so we just have more control over it. So this will be our, let's go and name this oscillators. Got noise, which has the ocean as well, or waterfall, any type of water noise. It's all going to kind of sound like noise. Like you can use like a wave breaking or whatever for like whoosh material as well, kind of like that. Okay. So let's find something that's a little bit weird. Make an output here. So this, we just want some like kind of random element to kind of like give a little bit more life to it. And like if you're going to make like 30 of patches like this, you can definitely sell them. You know, they're, you know, interesting enough where people would have to sit down and like make it. Whereas like if I was sitting down without talking about this, I probably would have been able to finish this patch in like a couple minutes, where I'm just like, oh, I want to do this, and this, you know, because I just have like a workflow with it. data loop. So that's cool. Just as like a little like tiny texture on the top. So I'm gonna get another one of these. Actually, I'm gonna get something else. So I'm gonna find some like other glitch texture, and I like just this just as like, it's kind of a substitute for having no percussion or whatever. If you're gonna do an ambient kind of thing, you can also add birds or animal sounds. Which actually I think that might be a better option here. A cow, a cat. No, we need a bunch of birds. Bunch of birds, but not chickens. We're looking for better birds, higher brow birds. So let's go into the sample library. Night jungle is pretty cool. I like that because it also has the texture of. Let's drop in there. It has a texture of like all the bugs and stuff. Let's put this on loop too. Okay, so these sound cool. I'm gonna move this output right here, and I'm gonna give them two separate outputs because I want to give them separate filters and stuff. But I don't want to clutter this stuff up, so I'll clutter this stuff up. So I like these like ticks and stuff. I don't like the low end that's coming out of it because I feel like that's gonna get in the way. And also it doesn't allow me to boost it because it doesn't need to come out in the mix, and I just know it's gonna get eaten by that mix. So I am gonna push it hit at this point here. And then I want to go and do that same thing to this. But I do want it to be a little bit dark, and I do want it to have weight too. So I'm going to leave it with just a low pass, and then we're going to overdrive that. Start at a point here, and start the loop around here. Nice. All right, so this is really good because it has all that moving texture on the top. And you can do that with a bunch of different stuff. So this doesn't just have to be some random data loop, I guess, that comes with FacePlant stock. It could also be like drum loops. I will use amen breaks a lot for this. If I'm going to do something with like other random stuff, it's not for like, I mean, I do. Actually, I can't say that I don't do this for like this more cinematic shit. So I'm going to consolidate that because that was a Rex loop. And I'm going to trim back these transients just preemptively. And this is something I would do. And then I consolidate from there. And then we can go and do that same kind of process again. So I'm going to keep this, though. I don't want to lose it. And then we're going to drop the almond. Sweet. I'm just going to add it to it. I'm just going to see what happens. And this is the thing that you should kind of just be random with it. So it's like, you know, you're getting snuck up on in the jungle by like an indigenous tribe. Here they come. It's a chupa libre. Okay, so that's cool. I like it. And now we're gonna get this back in here. So I pulled down the level. Let's pull that back. So I like this because it kind of simulates like raindrops. It's kind of what my thought process is with it. I like to add that kind of like individual transient element to it. Gives it that raindrop soothing effect. The slower it happens, the more soothing it is. So if it's happening really fast, it can add tension. That's why it like immediately sounds like you're being snuck up on and killed, as opposed to like snuck up on and like surprise. I don't know, surprise comfort. I don't know. It makes you feel tense, and it's not good if you don't want that. Let's give this to lane 2 as well, so we can get it in that. And I'm going to have this on full. I'm not going to change anything about this envelope because I just want to have full volume the whole time. Because it's really just going to be evident when it opens up with the low pass here. And then I want it to be a little bit more in the back. So let's kind of backtrack here and let's talk about what I just did. And I'm going to go a little bit more on the thought process behind this stuff. So we have all of our texture oscillators and stuff, and that's going to be our kind of like horn element for it. So sawtooths or anything texture like that, anything with odd and even harmonics we want. So anything that doesn't look like a square wave, pretty much. A sine wave is acceptable. No squares are allowed. Then we have noise. So the noise is going to give us our brightness. It's the sweeping air in the space that we're trying to create for it. So we want to either choose a noise sample, which is our waterfall sample here. And then we have some other kind of like darker textured noise. And then we have the fully, random element. So this could be anything. What I'm looking for this is transients. So I found this data loop which has transients. They can definitely have pitch and stuff. And that can definitely shape how I would use it in different elements here. So, what I did was take all the pitch out of it, that I could really tell once everything kind of comes together here from high passing. So we got that happening here and on the amen break that I went in kind of chopped up and put in there, or just ran through beats and consolidated. Then we have just a little bit of distortion at the end of the chain just to give it a little bit more body. So we want to fill in that body that we're going to take out with the high pass filters and give it more volume. So it's kind of a gain stage there. And then that's all being just kind of split out. So we just send the transient stuff that goes into lane 1, 2 from there. And then just to keep it a little bit organized, we have the other jungle sample running through something else here. So I could run another sample here too. Would not be opposed to that. But yeah, I'll fine tune the taste if you want more or less drive on this. I definitely like to push the drive on this, and this is something I just do all the time. Hence why I even have it split, because I just always find myself doing this whenever I add ambience and like into the patch like this. Is if it becomes degraded from it being pitched around and stuff, and you don't really have a good granular engine, which I don't see in grain mode. So there's really kind of a limitation with that. But I could also run FM into this, which is a cool thing. I can also run FM out. So I can run that into an oscillator here. So that's what becomes available now in Phase Plant, is I can go and patch stuff into things that I wouldn't typically be able to patch things into in, say, like Serum. Serum, you can patch things into a lot of things, but you can't patch things like that. It's like FM from B, dude. FM from N, FM from the sub, and FM from 1. A. And that's it, dude. Pads are like terrariums. Yeah, totally. Put some ants in there. These are the ants. But yeah, so in something like Absinthe, you do have granular. So in granular modes, I would definitely like run something like this. I might even run another pad sample or whatever. And then I would do something like this, where I go and create the layer of magic. And that's kind of how I think about it. Whereas the magic layer always has some brightness about it. So it's the thing that sounds like the higher lead on top of the synth. Sparkly and magical. I can run disperser on here and kind of like make it into a little bit of a didgeridoo. If I just have it move around a little bit, it's a little bit weird. Is there another lesson? Yes, I have, I think a video in the Synth 101 about faceplant. Just like a whole breakdown on the UI and like how to kind of just utilize all this stuff here. But for the most part, if you're thinking about getting into it and are a little bit confused, always remember that the signal flow is this little line here. So where there is an arrow, that's where signal's going. And if it's pointing out, it's going out. So if it's saying something like this and it's going from this destination here into these 2 points, and those both go out. So what I was doing dispersively here was I'm modulating both of those with this boot up LFO, which has that like sharper sawtooth like transient, which can be like a strike. So when I modulate something that creates pitch movement like disperser, it can create this weird drum loop. But yeah, so that would be like a little fun effect. And you just add that in. Like, oh, here's the drum loop. Like, what? The drum loop? Yo, dude, just turn up the knob, dude. Did you try macro one? Pointless drum. I can make that a little bit slower here too. So now I'm just creating texture. So you can see what I'm playing. Just, and I'm holding one note on the low end. So I'm just playing all these samples that I dropped in here really, really low pitched. So when I do that and then slow down this little stupid drum loop, comes a mechanism. Add some movement here. Went a little overboard on that one. Although it sounds super cool. So that's more stuff for the macros. Every time I find a little cool thing that I want to just like control or whatever. So I'm going to leave it like around here basic sound wise. I'm going to scale back that macro. So 100% equals 100% here. And we'll just have this be metallic. I accidentally put X, but that made it super cool, right? Okay, so want to add more of this delay when I do that too. So we're going to pull up the mix. Then we have this modulation going on the time. So I'm going to have that turn off from this guy too. So remember the auxiliary modulation from the source you want it to modulate from. Click on the little star and then just click on the yellow box and that's on. And then you can scale it back from here. So that means that this modulation is going to be 100% on when this is all the way up, which is, I believe, this guy right here. So we still have our orchestral horns going on. All right, so this is like dystopian future pad number 1, Cyberscape, because it has that kind of like tribal-esque, but still metallic. So it has the vibe of robots, right? Because robots sound like metal. So if you want to create cyber dystopian hellscape, this might be a place to start. You know, because then you can play this with a very high range scale. So play this super low pitched and then have something that's a normal pitch. Then we'll darken this at the end of everything. So we'll pull a ladder filter here just to soften it up. Make it feel less digitally. It's going to feel digital regardless, but I just like to put a ladder filter at the end. Yeah, that's like the Hell Factory. That's the Hell Factory theme, number 1. That's when your character's just looking from the outside. It's like, yep, that's where they build the fucking death baby robots that come out. give it some movement here. Let's give it some of that on this one. Yeah, this is creating just like the most foreboding kind of sound right now. So I know exactly what I'm going to be making for the remainder of the 30 minutes here. Because what I've done here pretty much today is pretty much like if you've ever looked through like any of the libraries and like, oh, I don't know where I could find a patch for a pad. Oh man, who the fuck made this? Zombie Apocalypse #1. And then it sounds like a bunch of dying corpses. You're like, what? How'd you do that? And they're just like this, like this. That's how you do it. So pretty much you want to create performance to it as well. So what happens over the course of its lifespan here that you create, and you span that out the minute you start making the patch, is like it's going to be long evolving. And so that should be your mindset over the course of everything here. And then you start with your basic pieces, which is darken it up, give that movement. So we have our envelope. And then this boot up thing right here, this is just being connected to more things as I go on. So that was decided on though, the minute I started making this. That was one of the first pieces I put into this patch. But it was, what else can I modulate with that? And what else can I start to connect everything and make it all kind of speak to each other? Because that's really important. If you don't have it speak to each other, then it just sounds like a mess. And that can be intentional in different elements for sure. In this case, I want to make it usable. So cinematic stuff that's usable can morph into many different things. So if you're trying to create a patch library of a bunch of presets that somebody paid $80 for, that's worth $80. Yeah, sure, you can spend $80 on cymatics presets that will go out of style within about 3 to 4 months. Or you can spend $100 on an Omnisphere pack, which is 1000% how much money people spend on packs, on top of spending $700 for Omnisphere itself. So, I tend to just go and make everything myself just because I'm always doing things to whatever I'm trying to do. If I'm saying I'm going to make something that's really creepy and kind of metallic wasteland kind of shit, I might do something exactly like this. But if I'm trying to make it a little bit more triumphant, so it's like a happier vibe, gives you a little bit more, I don't know, just a little bit more hope and stuff. Like this could be that, I guess. It really just depends on your chord choice. I can make it all major chords. Pretty much I'm only playing like minor F sharp, and other different modes of that pretty much. C sharp minor. I really like F sharp minor and C sharp minor. Those are my two main emo chord progression starts. F sharp just has this really nice positioning to it, like A on the piano. And then also just in the way it kind of is voiced. It's not too low, but it's not too high. So it ends up kind of like being in this very somber kind of place at all points. Pretty much everything I write garage is in F sharp. A lot of barrel tracks are in F sharp. F is a really common happy chord progression. So that's F major. So I like F major when I'm doing like any type of composition for app shit, any kind of app shit, all app shit. It's always F. Zeph or C. C is really, really approachable and very non-threatening. Whereas like a powerful F major progression can sound like just constant winning. That's kind of like what you're going for with it, right? So it's just like, you know, upward progressions. When things go up, your mood goes up. You just kind of like think about that. Go down to fourth. So I'm just going like 1, 3, 4. I'm actually playing the 3 and 4 at the same time here because they're just right there, right next to each other. In a really dissonant chord, say like a harmonic minor, where we're doing 1, 2 right next to each other, that becomes really, really evil instantly. But also, if you don't do that kind of relationship with it, then it becomes mysterious. It could be like, so that's like F sharp harmonic minor, pretty much, where you can actually play it the actual really evil progression, which is harmonic minor, and make it sound a little bit more mysterious, which becomes, like, I'm not sure what's in there, but I think it's treasure. It's got to be treasure in there. So it becomes a little bit more enticing. You know, it sounds risky. You know, but it sounds like there's reward too. It doesn't sound like death, which is death. That's death. But when it goes, it's like there's a chance. There's a chance you're dead. So like those chord progression choices become pretty intentional there. Okay, so now let's kind of end out the day here. So there's a lot of stuff I just talked about, and a lot of different like things that you should check out if you're trying to get into ambient music. If you're looking to make money off of making electronic music in any way, shape, or form, high key, this is a way to make money, and it's the way I make money. So, if you want my info about it, I could give one shit when anybody thinks about me in the bass music scene or anything, whatever. I just do my thing. I have my opinions about people. I have opinions in general. But this is like 1000% a recyclable skill that I think a lot of people can make money off of. Just being in any DAW, literally. I used to make 100% of my music in Reason for a long time. And a lot of that music I ended up selling for like sync libraries and shit because I made so much of it that I was just sitting on it. Where it's like, oh yeah, I made a ton of this shit in Reason like 3 years ago. And then I showed it to some music supervisor. It's like, well, this is actually good. And it's like, well, but it's only like 100, like 1 minute 20, and it's like, that's perfect for them because they're not looking for something that long. And then B, if it's out of Reason, I don't think the mix sounds that good. I have the tools to go and remaster something that's not even mastered and make it sound somewhat decent, especially if it's a bunch of synth patches. So, yeah, hopefully that gives people some shit to think about. I say over, because a lot of people ask me immediately when I tell them stuff like that, well, where do I put my stuff? And I could tell you a million different outlets, and I could tell you to cold call people and make connections, and 1000% that is the way. But if you don't want to induce anxiety upon yourself, because not having the check at the table, don't write checks your ass can't cash, right? So literally, don't make connections. Don't tell people you have stuff that you don't have. you can, I guess, if you have been able to shit that out within 20 minutes, whatever, you can definitely make that lie, I guess, you know, which is the case in a lot of like different networking kind of things. People, make those types of deals with people. But yeah, I will always recommend over everything. And 1000% everybody I've recommended this to and they've actually followed it has been successful. Other people, even so, being successful along their way, I've have had situations where like people I've mentored have not listened to me on that specific thing of like, hey dude, so you did get that big deal. This is an actual situation. I'm not going to say names or whatever. But let's just say it was with Insomniac and they did have an insane opportunity and they didn't listen to me on it. And they told somebody that they were ready to go. And when they were ready to show music, they only had 2 to 3 tracks ready to go. And they were just laughed out the door. And that's just how it goes. It's like if you don't have it ready to go, tell them it's ready to go, and you don't got it, then you're that dude. You're the dude who just lied to them in a professional environment. Like, why the fuck would I ever want to work with that person again? Put yourself in their shoes, When it's now money on the line, hey, I got this guy who got this thing. He showed me one. It's great. He's got more. Then it comes up to the day, and you don't have it, and you never did. Not a good look. Not a good look. Anyways, just some real world advice, I guess. Okay. Anyways, so I'm going to make a little chord progression here. I guess I could actually write it in. And we're going to do 120 here. And I think I'm going to do something evil. So I'm going to turn on my metronome. Okay, so we got 4 bars here, just about. Okay, so when you're thinking about this, I don't know if I think I actually have talked about motif and stuff like that. But when you're setting up motif and whatever the fuck that is, just a fancy word, I'm just saying, pretty much it's the vibe. The vibe is the thing that you're doing. So you want it to say the same thing over and over again, but then a little bit different. So if this is going to be the overall vibe, I actually want it to be a little bit more somber. So I'm going to have this go down to, if this is a C sharp here, I'm going to have this go to a minor second. So a D. Let's turn this shit off. And then let's loop it. So I have that other part there, and I was just keeping it there just as a placeholder, but I'm just going to take it off for now. Let's get this extra little thing out of here. So when you're setting up this chord progression, you want to create some type of turnaround, something that kind of like flips around the progression here right at the end of it. If it's going to be a long drawn out progression, this is going to be the phrase. 4 4-bar sections, and then this is where it turns around. So we can have maybe go to like C sharp harmonic. And I'm going to be like doing this from the perspective of you just knowing theory, I guess. But I'm going to select some stuff that's going to be a little bit more minor, maybe move it around here. Also, keep in mind, I am choosing the same notes over and over. So that is part of the motif, is the direction that the the notes move and the notes themselves. So, that being said, if I was to make a derivative cue of this, and that's what they call them in film world, cues. It's like, do you got the cues for all the cues? It's like, yeah. Do you have derivative cues from those other cues? Yeah. It's like, derivative cues are when you get a set of already composed music, and I had to do this for like some World of Warcraft shit. And then you go and recompose it from what you already have, which is the stuff they already made. So it's like a remix, pretty much, of orchestral music. So in order to create derivative cues of like ambience, you go and take their really, really fast orchestral, like do their thing the way they're doing it, and then you slow it down by like 10 times. Or take their chord progression and just drag it out for like 8 bars, and then try to add in little elements that are actually part of that melody line, literally the direction that the notes move in and the notes themselves. That's the motif. If you do this exact same shape, but then do this, speed it up, that's the same motif, but now it's twice as fast. Say if I was going to add in little elements on the top end here and have them kind of complement this, I would do this exact same shape, but then have them be super fast. Kind of like a little like crash of something. Like if there's something happening on the screen and we're scoring to that, there'll definitely be some random little elements that focus in on what's happening on the screen. Where it's like you have one little like swell of a water fountain. That's super, super effective in tension music, where it's like just one chord and all of a sudden, and then all of a sudden, you know, you see the fucking killer like looking in the corner of the room or something like that. And then that's actually, you know, composed into the music. Or just cut in post, added to it. But a lot of that stuff is kind of in it. All right, so it's going to pull back, and then we're going to open it up. So once this filter opens all the way up, then we're cooking. We're cooking, dog. Now we're in the A section. So the A section is going to be intro section with no filter. Crazy, dude. So this is literally how you would start this thing out. So if anybody's like, you know, again, trying to get into ambient music, check out Brian Eno shit. And Brian Eno is super, super experimental in how he does a lot of his structures. But if you're also curious on how to do ambient structure, literally listen to classical music, because classical music is the way to tell something happening as a moment, you know? So if you're trying to think of like anything like that, think, well, what have humans already done that have already done that? Classical music was TV for people back in the day, so that's why it's so complex and tells so many different things. So when we're in the A section here, I can go and take this without even doing it. Say if I was just doing this on the fly. It's like, okay, I got my thing. They gave me 20 minutes. Oh, shit. So that's going to be my second layer here. And it's going to be my A section kind of like sweetener. So I'm going to take this up a couple octaves, and I'm going to just high pass it. So it's just going to be like a flavor on top. It's going to be the same patch. And then maybe another thing here. So we'll take the same patch again. Keep on double clicking that. I'm going to chop this MIDI here. We're going to take out the low note. This is going to be like a quick one. I'm going to quantize these. Just want these on the downbeat. And then I'm going to speed it up. So I'm going to have this happen after every 2 bars. Okay, so we got filters as well on both of these. This one's high pass all the way. Let's bring that back a little bit. And then let's mix these down. We don't want them to be too loud. This one we can bandpass. I'm gonna bandpass this one. I'm gonna throw a delay on it. Let's throw some grain delay. Love that. Or we can do Valhalla delay. Probably would do that in a real setting. All right, so we need more amplitude out of this just because those envelopes are really long here. Let's pull this back actually, just for this patch. That's fine. And let's actually sustain this last note. And bring it down to resolution right there. All right, so we need to bring that way up in the mix. So we're going to compress it and dunk it up. All right, so let's get one of these notes. Let's bring it up into the high end here. Now we're going to smear it out a little bit more. So we're going to use shimmer. Shimmer. We also want a little bit more low end just to hold down the whole thing. Not any of that. We want Valhalla shimmer. So I just want this because it washes out super well. So let's get that same kind of shimmer range up here, which is like just pitched all the way up right now, just so high pitched. Let's go down 1 octave on this. Let's speed this up. They're not here on this one too, which is fine. All right, so we're gonna add OTT now. All right, so we don't want to squish it too much like that. What we want, we do want presence in the mid-range, but we want a lot of weight in the lows. That's going to be the most sustained in the mix here. And then we want something that kind of like bevels into this A section of the drop. I do chimes a lot of the time because I just want something magical. Oops. And now we reverse them, bang it down, flip it, and then we reverse it. So let's just get the reverse trime there, and then okay. So we got that going now. Let's go back to our automation. Stop it. Keeps on triggering. Let's get the automation up here. So we wanted to move around with this. This is going to be kind of really crucial with how it all kind of moves around here. So we got our B section right here. Can name these, I guess. Command R, A, B. One is kind of an I, so we'll leave that. So we'll move it all the way down here, and then we want it to kind of like shine back open. All right, so for the B section, let's try to do something that's the same but different. So we can do the opposite direction. So I just hit the invert button. So this is going to change the, the pitches. So I just want them to go the opposite direction. So we're in C sharp, playing Ds, we're playing G sharps. Perfect. So I'm just going to keep it like that. That's my direction for my B section. Beautiful. And then I want to move around this thing too. So let's have it kind of breathe into it. So meaning coming from a like higher pitch here, and then we'll have it move in and out. Same thing here. I'm cutting it out just a little too much here. Let's bring it down to about like 4K, and then let's bring it in about 4K. Just because it does have a really long envelope on there. I do like it coming in a little bit less than the rest of the mix. And then I want to move this entire thing out of the way. So I want it to be kind of like the foundation structure for it. And then, as I was saying in the guide, you want your melody element to kind of like dance around on top. So kind of like this, where, it can say something different. And then we have our phrasing. So it does this elongated legato note here, and then back to the kind of quick little motif again. Just the same exact setting of notes, different speed. So we want this to be able to be heard. Cool. I'm going to have it do that movement pretty much every time, just to kind of give me something to work with. so that definitely is a good counter melody to this. And then I'm gonna add this in here too. So I want this grouping of notes here. So we're going to open up this, and then we're going to consolidate. And it did it. Good job, Ableton. Nice. All right, so I'm going to keep it off this because this is kind of a turnaround. So we don't want it to be redundant there, but we do want it to kind of move around a little bit. So I might even do that. But just for the moment, I think that's pretty decent. Then we got these guys over here. They can actually do the same thing that they're doing in the beginning here because we have the alternate movement on the top. But we can also go and decide, you know, to put this at a lower octave here. We can go and reverse this as well. You know, so these are like formulaic ways of doing this. So on the same one, I did it same way I did before. I just hit invert and then I went down one semitone. So we're going to do that same exact process for this too. And then let's go and check the automation here. Let's bring this back a little bit. Do agree. It is a little bit too high pitched, but I don't want it to be too much in the mix. And then I want to, when I go and filter out this main lower pitch sound, I want this to just be on top. Like it totally fills out this space here. Then I might put in some vocal sample or something. Let's see if Ableton has some basic choir samplers. I don't feel like loading up Contact right now. You know what? I've heard worse. All right, so let's try this. Then we'll drench it in some reverb. Let's go shimmer. I want a big grainy one. Let's go big stereo. Like Big Pharma, there is big stereo. Thanks for the bits for that. Or, hey, with the subscription, Sherwood. Yeah, bitch. Thank you. So we'll just keep that little element in there. And then maybe I'll go a couple samples. All right, we'll do a couple samples. I'm already doing a couple samples already. Let's get some opera. I have some opera samples. I have a lot, actually. I have some. So this is an individual singer. I like that one. All right, so we're going to stretch this out. I'm going to put it into texture. See, this is why I was like trying to not go into Absent today, just so we can like talk about a ton of shit, make a really, really complex thing in Faceplant, and then I can like go into some of this stuff. Because we're going to go back into this on sampling as well. Let's get another filter here. And then we could also do a global verb as well to put stuff in. Some of these things just need to be washed out just for the texture of the sound, like this. But we could also put a global verb here. And this is let's go plate. Let's go plate. This one's good. So I really like this verb. There it is. So I really like this moving right at the beginning here, and then we're just gonna kind of fade it out. And then we're gonna fade it into. Now we're actually gonna bring it in about right here. So I'm gonna have it come in as kind of a transition sound. So I can actually have it right at 9 then. So let's put it at 9 so it's right in between these two different 8-bar sections. And then we'll add another delay just for the sake of not always doing a million plugins. Let's do this. So that's cool. I think it's a little bit, I want it to be more band passy. So not too many lows, but I also want it to be less bright. So right here, let's actually switch up the pairing or where this is going to be. So this is kind of like now going to be our A section defining element besides the rest of everything else going on. So it's getting drowned out in this mix a lot. So let's bring this up to about here. I'm gonna bring it up to where I can hear it. All right, so about there. And then let's bring up a utility. And if you don't do this, please stop yourself whenever you start doing it, like I was about to. And just automate the utility. Trim automation wins. And then just keep that going like that. Then we'll do that for our outro. Outro doesn't have to be 16 bars. That's where it ends, right there. So we got about a minute and 50, and that's chill. But we're at 120. 120 is a great place to cut it because that's the pacing of frames. 60 FPS. 2997. It's very easy to cut to the 120. I probably won't over this. I just made this in 10 minutes. So I put all this in a group, and it's just gonna darken. That's how I sweep everything out. Easy. Let's actually make this a 19. So we got the B section. Wow. All right, so this actually sounds a little bit weird to me, just because I'm noticing it. Just because I copied over this automation a little bit weird. So this is how I fix the rest of this song right here. Actually, I think I do kind of like the way it is doing that. So it is a happy accident, but I want it to move like this, kind of like a slow upward facing sawtooth. It's the yoga position. So it gives it a little bit of pacing. Cool. And then the wind chime carries over. And then we have the opera. Cool. And then we resolve on tension. So it resolving on that da-na, it's like, is it done? I don't know. That's what it sounds. I don't know. If it was done, it would be like, but it's done, and now I fixed my life. But no, it didn't ever do that. It was, I don't know. That's how I imagine it. It's just like a weird little South Park character in my head. But yeah, so hopefully that helps you. A lot of people have asked me about like ambient structure and stuff, which is cinematic structure. This is, if you were to be cutting some music, even for like a jingle, this is exactly how you do it. It's put the pieces in the place. Intro section, A section, B section, outro. And again, outro doesn't need to be too long. It doesn't need to be as long as the intro. In the intro, you could even offer like an alt version where this is also 8 bars. You have 16 bar A and B sections, and then 8 bar intro and outro, which gives you about 1 minute 30 seconds, which is ideal. Ideal because once you go and cut things like this, then it just becomes approachable from like a standard point of view. And then it becomes, okay, well, what does it do? You know, so I gotta, listen to the track and be like, we'll call this aimless wandering. I think that does it. I think it is. I think that's it. I think I captured it. Yeah, theory-wise, it resolves on the tonic. So the tonic is just constantly there. And when you're making tension music, the tonic is pretty much always going to be there. When you start to move the tonic, meaning like, and what he means by that is like the root note. So this is the root note. So root note is singular. I have never moved that root note. If you listen to it, when I do move the root note, it will drastically alter the mood. So you want to make sure that when you do alter the tonic, you are choosing it specifically for movement. So you want to move it in a direction that is supporting your overall theme. So if I went to something major, that could shift into something more complex. I could make this emotion more complex. It's like more quixotic, which becomes, is it like meant, is it not? No, yes, no, yes. Or you can make it a little bit darker and make it seem like there's more trials to the thing that you're trying to overcome, right? So that's what you're trying to evoke from these different, just note selections. I find that to be like so basic and simple that it's awesome, because that's kind of like because I'm a bass player, You know, even in the orchestral sense. These are the notes I play. I play this note. I've played this note. This used to be me. I've done this. I've been this note in an orchestra. And when you're in an orchestra, you are literally those pieces. It's like I am that note. And then if you are the triangle player, this is you right there. Hey man, I need you at practice every day. And if you're late, god damn it. Just so you can wait for me to be like, all right, amazing, awesome, great, awesome. All right, you in the back. Let's try that again. From Nope, let's do it again. Actually, French horn number 3. Pack up your shit and get the fuck out. Thanks. The triangle player, you stay. Triangle player, you sit back down. Not again. We're paying you extra. All right. So anyways, hopefully today was enlightening. We're going to be doing kind of the same thing on Thursday. And then if you're trying to be part of the cipher, send in your stuff. So far, we only have JS, I think, which is fine. But yeah, so I mean, literally though, like if you've ever played percussion in orchestra, you know the struggle, I guess, or just like you're waiting around for 60 bars and then some flute fucks up again, and then just like then the band director is just pissed off at the flutes. They're just yelling at the flutes, and then the flutes got to get up and leave, practice their shit, and it's all about the flutes for the day. It's like, dude, just practice your shit. Okay, so here's what I get when I hear this chord change. Just I'm like being a little bit ADD right now, but just so you know, because the question about that or just the comment. So this becomes a little bit more somber, as in I think something has been lost. Where it goes da na na na. That's what I want to hear. That's how it resolves, because it becomes grieving. It's like grievance and then acceptance. You know, where it's like I have a problem with something and then you accept it, or you know you're sad that something's gone and now you have to accept that it's gone. You can evoke that with a couple things. You can evoke it with chord progression. Something that I feel like is probably the most effective. And if you are in an orchestra environment, it becomes the forte, pianissimo, whatever, how loud. So that becomes utility modulation or trim modulation, or just filter modulation. Filter modulation becomes the kind of like softer, more in your face kind of thing. So I can filter everything down, low pass it, make it feel dark, like it's fleeting, like it's sunrise or something. You know, like the light is at the end of the tunnel, but you know, I still whatever, you know. But then when you do like a just single tonic like this, it becomes more tense because you're stuck. You're stuck on one note. You're stuck in this one thing. You're stuck doing that, and then you just wander in the same place. You're just going around in circles. It's kind of the idea is you want tension to be going around in circles on the same emotion, drive you quite crazy on that, but just like in your mind, you know, like this one thought that keeps on coming back in your head or something. Yes. Should you also modulate the mix of reverb? Yes. If you're trying to make something feel more in the background, more like it's thrown out there, modulate more reverb into the sound. For this, how I'm evoking that is like certain elements have more or less delay. So this is the shine. And it kind of crosses over into this section here where I darken everything again. Then I also have carryover from another reverb over here, and then I have this constant kind of like vocal swell. So when this would be too much is if I'm not able to hear this note right here.